All right, so welcome everyone to our development activities meeting here in Oakland. I will now hand it over to the applicant team for 214 South Craig Street.
Thank you very much. This is Ryan Indovina Associate Architects. We're here on behalf of Mike Wu, the property owner of both properties, to present the development as it currently sits. So let me share my screen. All right, everybody see that?
Yep, good to go.
Okay, so again, thanks very much for having us this evening. We're excited to present the project here, which, as Christian mentioned, is basically two pieces. One is demolition and development of new structure. The other is renovation of existing structure. This is a general sort of overview map of Oakland, just with the highlighted specific parcels in red. So it's right along Craig Street at Winthrop and Craig, basically midway between 5th and Forbes. Current site, which we'll see in a second, is occupied by two structures I'll talk about. Just an overview, just an aerial. Oops, got a little feedback here. Is there a way to, I think it's,
Hey,
from
Ryan, I
Tom.
think the feedback might be coming from Tom.
Yep.
I could try to potentially mute Tom. 1 second.
Yeah, that's good. I see it muted.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so the two structures are highlighted here in this overview. They're situated basically between a multitude of large-scale buildings. People are probably familiar with it, but they're two cedar shake-clad, 2.5-story former residences, one at the corner of Craig and Winthrop, and the other one sort of inboard on Winthrop. Both of those were converted quite a long time ago from residential to commercial use. So the corner project or corner building was converted to sort of a restaurant, karaoke bar, and then the one inboard was converted to office use. So a couple of site views here. So on the far right hand side, that's a view looking at the corner building on Craig Street, labeled K-Box. So again, cedar shake clad 2-story building. You kind of see the same thing in context along Craig in the middle image, as it's situated next to the larger red brick building to the south. And then in the left-hand image is looking on Winthrop back towards Craig at the existing 2.5-story structure that also remains there. So just quick familiarity with the site survey here. So just indicating what's currently on the site. So Craig Street on the right-hand side, Winthrop on the bottom. The two-story frame building occupies the majority of the site. Little brick patio in the rear, access off of Craig and Winthrop corner. Fairly small parcel, small site. Again, fully occupied by the existing structure. The second parcel here is along Winthrop, so that's the 2.5-story building. There's an entrance plinth off of Winthrop with access from both ways. Small asphalt parking space between that building and the adjacent multi-story building. And then a small asphalt area between on the right-hand side of this existing structure towards the rear of the Craig Street building. And then there's a narrow access fire escape between the building and the north boundary property line that is against the large-scale multi-story building to the north. So just kind of a quick overview of the zoning district here. It's the OPRB, so the Open Public Realm Subdistrict B, Craig Street. And with just the basically City of Pittsburgh description within the zoning code, describing kind of the comprehensive strategy of this zone, in which housing commercial areas are specifically identified. So in this case, there's 4 sub-districts. The site development standards are pretty straightforward. The maximum height in this area is 60 feet. The FAR, which is the floor area ratio, is 4:1, and the maximum lot coverage is 90%. Just a general use table, restaurant and multi-unit residential are permitted as of right uses. And then again, there's no surface parking permitted as sort of a baseline unless it's accessory. A couple other pieces, just maintain 65% of the building frontage for new construction, being transparent between a height of 3 feet and 8 feet. with the idea of making sure that any new construction along the Craig Street right of way is very clear, visible, and open to pedestrians as well as for users looking back out to the public realm. So stepping over to the site plan as proposed, as we stated at the beginning, the idea is a demolition of the existing structure. So in this case, that is the building along Craig and Winthrop. So the two-story K-box building would be fully demolished and replaced with a two-story restaurant structure. So the ground level, in this case, you're seeing here the ground level on the right-hand side would have its main entrance off of Craig Street, the double doors, walk into the large public side of the restaurant with service and basically, I'm blanking out, but service bar facing out towards Craig Street. And then the remainder of that building would be internal kitchen, back of house area, and restrooms to service that space. Shifting over to the existing building to remain on Winthrop. As I mentioned before, it used to be residential structure and was converted to commercial quite a long time ago, commercial office space. And the idea here is to convert it back to residential as a 3-unit, multi-unit residential building. So 1 unit per floor. So in this case, we have a renovation of the existing exterior and existing entrance points to the building to then service a central sort of lobby space that then would allow for conversion of the ground level into a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit. As I mentioned before, there's sort of 2 asphalt zones between this building and the adjacent building to the west, as well as between this building and what will now be the restaurant space to the east. And in those zones, we're intending to provide parking, so 3 parking spaces to service the 3 units. And utilize the existing curb cuts as they sit today to service those 2 parking zones. We will also be providing street trees, which you see along the perimeter of both Winthrop and Craig in the City of Pittsburgh allotted requirement, which is basically every 30 feet of site perimeter, we're providing street trees. And obviously it's also a benefit just to the general appearance of the site. So in this case, we're providing five new street trees along the 2 open sides of the site. Shift up to the next floor. So the second floor on the right-hand side is further restaurant space that will be accessed via an internal stairway from the ground level off of Craig. It'll be a separate restaurant space that serves different types of food, though it's kind of the same general overall restaurant idea. And then on the existing building to the left, we provide the second unit. So in this case, is another 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit, and you see the parking below. And then shifting up to what is the 3rd floor of the existing building, would have a 1-bedroom, 1-bath within basically the raked eaves of the current 3rd floor space, and then we would have the roof of the proposed building on the right-hand side. So shifting over to the aesthetics of the building, I've got some renderings a little bit further in the presentation, but this is just some flat-on elevations of the proposed building. On the right-hand side is the Craig Street elevation. The left-hand side is the rear elevation. So that would be looking at the parking lot towards the adjacent house. Or multi-unit apartment building at this point. And as is required in the zoning district on the right-hand side, the majority of the ground level is fully glazed and transparent. We currently are intending to include on the whole left-hand side of the building a movable glass wall. So in days like today, that can be opened up and allow for open transparency between the sidewalk and the inside of the restaurant. And then the same kind of pattern and orientation of the second floor would match the ground floor, where we would have further floor-to-ceiling glass interspersed with contrasting materiality. So in this case, we've got sort of 3 materials on the building. We've got a decorative masonry, so decorative brick is the white area. We have a smooth stucco material, which is the gray horizontal band where you see restaurant, and then we have vertical wood siding on an open joint rain screen, which is the brown zone adjacent to the front door, and the movable glass partition. Again, trying to bring in some nice, clean, modern materiality on the frontage facing Craig Street. That material then wraps the whole building, as you see on the left-hand image, which is basically the back of the building, the least public oriented part of the building, but still clad fully in full height masonry with a light color, and then accentuated with sort of bronze colored storefront and doors, access points, and a stairway. Shifting over to the Winthrop elevation. This is again bringing that same materiality around the corner, where we have 2 stories of full glazing separated by a stucco, decorative stucco band. And then as it extends over to the far right or far left-hand side of the building, it's a 2-story articulated masonry elevation. So what you see there is basically a patterning that we're going to create 3-dimensionally of brick to make it a little more interesting than just a solid face of brick. And all of that is capped over with sort of a projecting roof line to create some shadow and some dynamism to the facade. Shifting over to the existing building. So right now it's clad in cedar shakes that are not in great shape. So the goal of the project is to basically renovate the building and essentially reclad the entirety of the building. So what you see here is a much lighter coloration in which we are using a horizontal shiplap siding in a light gray color that is mixed with a nice bright white horizontal board and batten paneling that occurs between the windows on the 1st and 2nd floor. We're replacing all the windows currently, which are, I believe, vinyl windows. So we're replacing those with a much higher quality window. Most likely partial or full roof replacement as well, but all the eave lines, rake lines, all the roof components would all remain the same. So the massing of the building itself would remain, and that would extend on all sides of the building. So you see the Winthrop elevation on the right-hand side, and then the north elevation, which is basically directly up against the large University of Pittsburgh building to the north, would be on the left-hand side here. And then the 2 adjacent elevations, one on the right-hand side is going to be facing the rear of the restaurant. And there's currently a shallow projecting bay window kind of construction that extends for the 2 floors and then intersects with a projecting dormer on the top floor. And then on the left-hand side, this would be facing the multi-story white building to the west. Again, all new cladding, all new materiality across the board on the building, with the idea of making it a much more attractive house while using the existing massing as to remain. And then finally, this just a rendered view of the front building. Obviously, in the rear, you see the existing structure, which will upgrade the rendering. But the idea is of what we proposed in the previous slides is to fully reclad that structure. So here's the rendering on Winthrop and Craig, where we see the 2-story structure in 3 dimensions with the big, open glazed area facing into the restaurant on the ground level, fully glazed on the upper level, and then the materiality and sort of overlapping components of brick, stucco, wood, and glass all intend to create a nice, reasonably scaled restaurant interjection on the Craig Street corridor to really anchor this corner and add a nice, attractive, and exciting new restaurant use along what is a very dynamic and active corridor through Oakland. So with that, that's my presentation. I appreciate it.
Great, thank you so much, Ryan. Tom, are you able to hear us now, by chance? Yeah, I think all right, so yes, thank you again. I think so now we'll open it up for any comments or questions. Feel free to type in a question or comment on the Q&A. Also feel free to raise your hand and we can call on you. Don't see anything, but I'll give it a moment to see if anyone has anything.
Hello, this is Jonathan Russell from Carnegie Museums. I love the design. I think it looks great. I'm wondering if there's any idea of what, just out of curiosity, if there's any idea what kind of restaurant is going to be in that space, or if there's anything you can tell us about the type of clientele it looks to serve.
I can defer to Mike for that if he's on.
Yeah, so we're gonna have three different concepts here. We're gonna try to do something different from everybody else. Most likely some Asian food, American, but it'll be a mix. Perhaps even a bakery with the dessert shop. So that's kind of what we have planned at this point.
Great, thank you.
So I guess to add further clarity, it would be a privately owned, national chain type restaurant concept. So it's not a Subway or something like that.
Yes.
Glad to hear that.
All right, I don't see any questions or comments in the typed out. So last call for anyone and before we move on. All righty, I think we are good. Thank you again, Ryan and your team. We'll
Of course,
now,
thank you very much.
yeah, appreciate it.
Let me, I will unshare, or I guess you can, no, I have to do it.
There we
Sorry,
go.
there we go.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Yes. Yes,
Thanks,
thank you.
Ryan.
Take care. All right, so I think we're ready to move on to the second item, which applicant is Carnegie Mellon University. So with that, I'll pass it over to Bob Reppy.
Thanks, Christian. And if I could ask, Jameson is going to share, he and I are going to share walking through this proposal, which is a relatively quick one. And if you have been listening to our discussion over the last several months about our new RK Mellon Hall of Sciences, this is tangentially related. The proposal that we're looking to advance is the demolition of the existing residence building, a vacated residence on Fillmore Street. If we go to the next slide, please, you can see where it's, there you go. The pictures on the left, on the right, excuse me. This is probably most famously known as the former Nardo's hot dog place. You can see the airplane wing type little grafted piece of plexiglass that was on the front for many years, probably a half dozen years ago or so. The former resident or the former owner of that used to sell hot dogs there. And then sadly he passed and had sold the building to the university as part of that before he passed. The university has looked at a number of different situations for this, and considering the construction of the Hall of Sciences that is going to be ramping up into the starting up this summer, the university is proposing a kind of two-phased approach to the reuse of this site. The first is to take the building down and then use it as part of our construction management plan for the Hall of Science construction. And the map on the left shows why we're looking at this. The idea is the PJ Dick / Mascaro offices, they're our construction managers. Their offices are in an existing house over on Henry Street that the university has updated or renovated to use for construction field offices. And then, of course, the construction site is down in yellow, down along Forbes Avenue. It's a very tight and constrained site. And so we're looking as the opportunity to take the building, when we take the building down here, to use it for construction staging. And Jameson's going to talk about both the short and long-term pieces here in a moment. You can see the building itself has been vacant for about a half a dozen years at this point. It is in pretty poor condition. As a side note, we have already worked with Construction Junction to have them go through the building and identify and take out components that they thought were useful for reuse in the building, so those components aren't going necessarily into the landfill. With that, Jameson, I'll turn it over to you to walk through the short term and then the longer term thinking.
Unmute myself.
Yeah, so as Bob was saying, once the building is demolished, the short-term approach will be just to provide a fenced-in space. We'll have some kind of permeable surface. Well, maybe planted grass to start, but it also may be gravel for the uses that Bob was talking about. Then we'll have, just to keep the sidewalk somewhat clean, we'll probably have a small strip of lawn area. Let me go to the next slide. So near term, the potential contractor uses will probably limit it to two options. One would be to utilize it for construction mock-ups. So basically small examples of what will be on the Arcam Science building, just basically for testing and aesthetic purposes. And then second thing that we may have there is a construction trailer. Subcontractors may need a space to perch for a period of time that we can't account for in the Henry Street house. So that might be a secondary option that we would have for the site. In the long term, we're looking to actually consolidate this lot, which is the 52N 270 in the map, with the two adjacent lots on Craig Street. The idea is that this can then become an accessory use for the building that houses Luca as a potential parking lot. But then beyond that, no specific plans at this point. Bob, I don't know if I missed anything on that.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, I think, is that we are currently only seeking the demolition of the house to use it for the construction staging. And in maybe 2 years or so, when we start looking at the reuse, we would be comfortable. We'd basically repeat this process for what the actual parking lot would do. We are not asking for that approval at this point. We know we need to go through the consolidation to get to those. We do think in the long run, a parking lot that supports as an accessory use for Luca would be a really good use to support the restaurant as well as other components in the business district. It also continues the university's intent and support for the business district by providing parking for both properties that the university owns, but also for other retail and restaurant activities on Craig Street. But again, we have not yet designed that, and we would bring that back through both a zoning and a dam process to in the future as needed.
Yeah, and I would just add once we get or if we were granted approval, we anticipate the demolition based on our construction manager's schedule to take approximately 3 weeks to complete, and then about a week to restore the site to its final, to its temporary condition.
That's
it.
That's what we got.
All right, thank you so much. Open it up now for any questions or comments.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, Tom, we can.
I'm sorry. It turns out my volume is going to my new hearing aids, which I wasn't wearing. So, you might have addressed this, but the last time, Sim, you were working on that building on Fillmore, we had trucks and vans parked all around our shop constantly during our business hours. So did I miss you having addressed that?
Yeah, well, we didn't talk specifically about time, but I think we can, one of the things, this site, what we're proposing to do is to use it for just mock-ups and construction trailer parking, no parking for contractors. And we are working right now, we know that in the short term, during the mass excavation that we anticipate will take most of the remainder of this year, our intent is that we will park those workers, those handful of workers will be parking on the site during the construction while we're doing the excavation. When we get deeper into construction, we are working with our university's parking folks to create an off-site remote parking for our contractors, and then utilizing the university shuttle system to bring those parkers to the campus. The idea is we do not want them parking in the Fillmore, Henry, or Winthrop Street area.
And you think they'll comply with that?
We're going to make them do that. Yeah, we're going to make them.
That's all I needed then. I'm good.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Glad we got you on.
Yep. Tom, that's a good one, Tom.
I know.
Yeah.
Are there
Alrighty.
other people still on? Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any questions or comments?
Bob, maybe you could talk about just what's the route that the trucks take when you're demolishing a structure like that? Like where is the rubble going to go and how's it going to get there?
That's a great question. Jameson, have we talked? Yeah, I know you talked with the team about that a little bit, right?
Yeah, so they'll have to basically access Fillmore Street and then turn your back onto Zabina Way for at least getting dumpsters set, and then any kind of trucks that would have to haul material away. We haven't discussed whether they would come down Craig Street, come up from Neville to Craig Street or from Craig Street to Neville, but we can try and track down those logistics and report back.
Do you have Andrea and Andrea and maybe Tom also? Is there a best way to get construction vehicles to that site? Is it better to do Craig Street or is it better to come down Neville and then up Fillmore?
I would think Neville for sure.
I would think Neville too, but I think you have to be careful about the timing early in the mornings and in the
Afternoon when Central is loading and unloading.
When Central is loading and unloading, it is a freaking nightmare.
Yeah. I think that's something that we can work through. I'm also comfortable with the idea of, do we have them coming up Neville and off of Craig Street? Because that can be a tight corner coming off of Craig Street.
Yeah, it would be. Plus, I think Central would be amenable to having most of the traffic leave on the other exit onto Fifth Avenue if you talk to them about it.
Yeah, we could work out and just make sure our staging is opposite of, if we do this, I think our intent is that we would be doing this during the summer when Central's not in session. And so therefore, hopefully that won't be a significant issue.
Yeah.
You might possibly want to reserve the parking spaces at the bottom where Neville and Fillmore
for the turn coming
together,
off of Neville.
Just to give yourself
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah.
Well, there's only parking on the north side of the curb there, the north
Right.
side. So
It's still
trucks
tight,
coming
though.
down the hill,
Yeah.
coming down Neville and turning right, should be able to have enough swing, but we'll look into that to make sure there's enough swing space for them. That's a great point, Doug. And I do think I do like the idea. I think that's a great suggestion to use Neville for the access.
Mike, I'm not sure if you and Ryan have discussed the demolition plan for the Craig Street property. Also similar kind of constraint. You have an easier straightaway, but it's going to be difficult navigating the traffic on Craig.
Yeah, we have existing parking spaces between the two properties. So most likely they would park there. It'd be different if we, tore down the entire site.
Right.
But that's our solution for now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there any way to look at parking enforcement during any of this? It's different if people are coming and doing short-term parking versus all day.
I think that's a question that we could ask the city, and the university. We're not. Our university police can do a lot of kind of traffic control, but we're not allowed to do parking management.
I understand. Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think it'd be great. I mean, might be something. I think maybe we could talk to the council person about talking to the city.
I already started the conversation with
Excellent.
Erica. Yeah.
Tom, if there's anything we can do to help with that conversation, let us know. Please let me know.
Thanks, I appreciate
Because I
it.
agree. I think parking management is going to be a big part of how we're going to get through this.
Including, and I'm going to talk to her about maybe not having that outdoor part or seating in front of Eat Unique, and also there used to be a bus stop in front of our place, and that bus stop is gone, but they still don't let us use that parking spot. So I'm going to be addressing that with her.
Okay.
Are the two demolition projects scheduled to happen at the same time?
That's a good question. I don't know what Mike and Ryan are planning to do theirs. Ours is sometime this summer, right, Jameson?
Yep, correct.
We're also aiming for the summer as well.
Party on Craig Street.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, there used to be a party on Craig Street. We're still going to have those.
Yeah, this fall.
Well, we had the evening things a couple times during the summer where they closed down the street.
Who
So
sponsored that? Was that through us or was that through?
That was the city. I'm pretty sure that was the city.
Okay, that's what I thought. Through innovation, was it? Mike was.
Yeah.
Tom, are you talking about the Craig Street? This is Mike Mann from the Pittsburgh Innovation District. Are you talking about last summer, the outdoor market series?
Yeah, the market.
Yeah, so we did that. We also did outdoor dining. So if you have a specific conversation about that, we can have that as well at a later time. But We're working on a vendor series again this summer.
Okay.
So stay tuned. We were actually supposed to have something this past Friday, but because of the rain and wind, we canceled. But
I didn't even know, so I hope you can add me to whatever
Yeah.
that, we'll support it.
For sure. And we actually have, I mean, not to take over this conversation, but just as a final note, my organization is, we're getting folks from the Craig Street area together for a sort of reoccurring forum starting in late April. So Tom, it's been a while since you and I have talked. I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, reach out. I'm totally
via
in. I've
email.
already talked.
Yeah,
I've
I'll
talked
catch
to some of the
up on
merchants.
some of these things for sure. Yep.
Thanks. And I
Yeah.
apologize for missing the beginning part of the meeting. I also have Penguins tickets, so I'm gonna go.
Let's go Pens.
Awesome. Have
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
Bring us a win, Tom.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Again, sorry for the mix-ups. All right, take care.
No problem.
care.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, so this is great. We got to cover even more things. Great collaboration. All right, any final words before we say goodbye?
Tony with Luca here. The only thing I ask is when you decide a date, give me about a 2-week notice. I'm a little concerned about pests in that building. Once that building comes down, they're going to be looking for a new home. We've already talked to our pest control about ramping up and putting some preventative measures in place. So we just kind of, if we know when it is, we can put our preventative measures in place and get ahead of it.
We can do that. And we've done some pest control. We're going to continue to do so up until the time of the demolition. So hopefully we'll help capture as much as we can beforehand.
Could I just ask if you guys are going to be lacing the place with more poison, that there be a little, also a heads up for us to be able to notify some of the neighbors down the street?
Sorry, Andrea, I missed the first part. Can you say it
If you're
again?
going to be using more poison on lacing this thing, there's a couple people who have cats and dogs, and I just wanted to
Okay.
make folks aware if you're going to be poisoning the rats, not to eat them.
Yeah, I'll find out specifically. My understanding is we had some traps set up for
we've been using
for
mostly
rodents.
traps so far.
Yeah, but I'll
Yeah.
I'll confirm that.
Thing we would use on our end is restaurant approved. So there'd be no issues on that end. Do you guys anticipate it affecting our business at all? Like there'd be maybe a day or two we need to close, or I mean, it's not that large of a building. I don't think there's going to be too much disruption.
I don't think we'd anticipate anything, Tony, where we'd have to close the building. No.
Okay. Excellent.
Our thought is that we'd be, they're probably going to be in and out of there in a couple of weeks, and they'll be doing the work during the daytime predominantly.
Okay.
Jameson, we're not anticipating any evening or weekend work, right?
No, has not been discussed. No.
All right.
Add into what Jonathan Russell said. By the way, congrats. Both projects are, I think, beautifully designed and responding quite nicely to the context. So thanks. And yeah, go Pens.
Indeed, go Pens. They need pull it off here. A few more games to get in, so we'll see.
Yeah, we need to win bad.
Yeah, they now or never. All right. Well, I think with that, thank you all for your time and have a good evening.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks to
Thank you.
OPDC and OBID for hosting.
Of course.